Have you heard of Mood.com? They sell federally legal cannabis gummies. Everything you'd expect from a dispensary, and ship it right to your door. 0 pants required. I'm serious. You can now get high-quality, 100% federally legal cannabis products delivered right to your door without ever leaving your couch. And you can get $30 off your first order at mood.com/RLRC with promo code RLRC. Mood partners with small American farms to bring you amazing high-potency THC gummies, home-baked cookies, top-shelf flour, vapes, and more. And third-party lab-tested, backed by a 100-day guarantee. No dispensary lines, just clean, quality, 100% federally legal THC from the farms to your couch. Best of all, not only is every Mood product backed by a 100-day satisfaction guarantee, but as I mentioned, listeners get $30 off their first order with code RLRC. So head to mood.com/RLRC, check out their online dispensary, and let Mood help you discover your perfect mood. And don't forget to use promo code RLRC when you check out to save $30 on your first order. Are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? I know Sydney was, and if you're a woman, you're definitely not alone. There are more than 1,000 hormone disruptors living rent-free in our environment right now, found in our food, water, and even in our skincare products. These disruptors can wreak havoc on our hormones. Believe me, before Hormone Harmony, I watched Cindy suffer. Not anymore. Hormone Harmony's formula, made only with herbal ingredients, have reduced Cindy's hormonal symptoms, and it helps women of all ages. Then there are the natural hormonal changes our bodies face, such as menopause. While these processes are part of life, they don't have to be uncomfortable. The good news is that you don't have to suffer through it any longer. Hormone Harmony contains science-backed herbal extracts known as adaptogens, designed to help the body cope with stressors, including those chaotic hormonal fluctuations that can disrupt your daily life. Whether it's PMS symptoms like irritability and cravings, or menopause symptoms such as hot flashes and night sweats, Hormone Harmony can help with it all. Happy Mammoth, the creator of Hormone Harmony, is dedicated to improving women's lives by using only high-quality, science-backed ingredients. They make no compromises on quality, ensuring that you receive the best support possible. This isn't just a supplement. It has become a phenomenon. Women are talking about it everywhere, with a bottle of Hormone Harmony sold every 24 seconds. And the most important benefit, women express feeling like themselves again. A sentiment echoed in over 30,000 positive reviews. For a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code RLRC at checkout. That's happymammoth.com. Don't forget to use the code RLRC for 15% off today.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to or during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your door, your running's over, that's for sure. He already knows all about you. Cut you down, don't let him buy you. Now you better walk the line. Real life, real
Warning, this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, may contain descriptions of acts of violence or that of a sexual nature and should be for people that are 18 years or older. Heed my warning, people. I do not get the facts of these cases off of the internet or from some television show. The facts I'm retelling you were presented to me by the victims of the crimes or the perpetrators who committed the crimes against the victims.
My descriptions of the crime scenes, what I saw with my own two eyes. If you're going to get offended, please turn this podcast off now. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Woody Overton. And today we're continuing part 2059 of Scorched, the state versus Scott Peterson. I actually don't have the correct number of how many episodes this has been on Scorched, state versus Peterson, but the numbers continue to grow. And we are giving you direct courtroom testimony at this point in the death penalty phase of the trial. And it's just absolutely crazy to me that they're putting all these people up there with this useless information to try and save Peterson's life. They're giving it to the same people who just convicted him of brutally murder. I guess there is no other type of murder, but brutally murdering his wife and unborn son, Connor. So we are going to get right into it. Patreon convicts, hope you are enjoying your commercial-free early releases and bonus episodes and all the other materials we put up for you. And let's just dive right into it. And I promise not to interrupt in the middle when I get all pissed off reading this to you. I got a couple comments. People are like, could you not interrupt in the middle when you're reading it and go off on them? Yeah, I'll do that for y'all. So, well, let's get into it. Without further ado, let's roll with it. Now we're going to December the 2nd of 2004. And the defense attorney, Pat Harris, is continuing, or actually starting a new examination of a person, Aaron Fritz, okay? And let's just see what kind of lessons Mr. Fritz has to say about the wonderful Scott Peterson. But once again, I'm going to say Harris, and then I'll say what Harris says, and then I'll say Fritz, what Fritz says. So Harris says, "Good morning, Fritz." "Good morning." Harris: "Mr. Fritz, I want to just start first with a little background as to how you came to know Scott Peterson. You obviously testified here before, so the jury is aware that you do have a friendship with Scott Peterson. Tell me a little bit. First of all, where was your, you originally are from Indiana, is that right?" Fritz: "Yes, I am. I grew up in Indiana. I moved out to California right when I was starting high school in San Diego." Harris: "What grade were you in when you moved there?" Fritz: "I was just graduated 8th grade, so I was getting ready to go into my first year of high school." Harris: "So you would have been a freshman, right?" Fritz: "Yes." Harris: "And what school was that?" Fritz: "University of San Diego High School." Harris: "Where is that located?" Fritz: "It's located in San Diego, just across the street from the University of San Diego. It's oftentimes referred to as Uni High." Harris: "When you use the term Uni High, that's what you are referring to?" Fritz: "Yes." Harris: "This is a 4-year school? 9, 10, 11, 12? Fritz: "Yeah, the school was like I said. It was associated with the University of San Diego across the street, both of which were run by the Diocese of San Diego, the Catholic school, and 10th through 12th grade. Harris: "Did you go all 4 years there?" Fritz: "I guess it's actually 9th through 12th grade. Yes, I did." Harris: "Were you a year behind Scott Peterson in school?" Fritz: "Yes, he was a sophomore when I started. I was a freshman." Harris: "Did you meet him when you were a freshman?" Fritz: "Yes, I did." Fritz: "Yes, I did." Harris: "How did you meet him?" Fritz: "We both played on the golf team, and I believe that's how I originally met him early in the year." Harris: "Okay, were you the new kid in school at that point?" Fritz: "I was actually just moved from Indiana, I didn't know anybody in California, and I didn't know anybody in the school. We literally just moved there a couple weeks before school started. So University of San Diego High School was North County in San Diego. Kind of attracts people from all over the country. It's not like the normal, being a parochial school, people came from all over the county. So not only did I not know people in my neighborhood, I didn't know people in the school. And Scott was one of the first people that I got to know. Harris. He befriended you early on? Fritz. Yes. Harris. What were your initial impressions of Scott when you met him? Fritz. Well, first of all, I think he realized that I was new to the area and new to the school, and everybody was new to the school. Freshmen pretty much came with cliques of friends already in place. I didn't have that being from Indiana, and he was very gracious and very welcoming, and always invited me to have lunch with his friends and hung out together and just kind of made me feel welcome. Harris. Was that unusual since you were a freshman and he was a year older? Fritz. Absolutely. As a sophomore, with his own group of friends and this new kid from out of town, I mean, it was really not a lot of people kind of stepping out and being that inviting and that welcoming and that just encouraging to hang out with their own group. So it was very warm welcome for me as a new person in the school. Harris. I'm going to just briefly take you quickly through the entire length of your relationship, and then we'll go back. You ended up knowing him all throughout high school, is that right? Fritz. Yes, I did. Harris. Then, when he went off to college, did you go to the same college? Fritz. No. I came up to Northern California to go to school, and actually, he had left high school the year before I did because we were I was a year behind, I believe. So we weren't as in touch on a daily basis with like to be when we were during school. Harris. Did you later resume your friendship? Fritz. Yeah. He originally went to Arizona and then came back to California, and I believe following year and lived in the San Luis Obispo area where he went to community college there and then also the university. And when he moved back to California, I was oftentimes driving home from the holidays. Harris. Where were you going to school? Fritz. I was going to school here in Northern California, Santa Clara University. So he was halfway between where I lived, where my family lived, and my school. So I was oftentimes driving for holidays and things like that. So wherever we had a chance, we would coordinate and meet up for dinner, and I would stay over on the way home or on the way back to school. Harris. When he moved to Modesto, did your friendship continue at that point? Fritz. Actually, it strengthened. Being in Modesto is a lot closer to the Bay Area here where I live. And we were able to spend a lot more time together because we had about an hour and a half drive, as opposed to 3 or 4 hours or more in the earlier period. Harris. So in all, you have known your friendship has spanned about 17, 18 years. Is that right? Fritz. About 17 years. Harris. You stayed at least in contact throughout all that period. Fritz. Yeah, we have. Even when he was living in Arizona and I was in Northern California. He came to visit me in college up at Santa Clara a couple times. I went down to visit him a number of times in the San Luis Obispo area. Harris. Let me go back now to high school. When you were in high school, You were on the golf team, right? Fritz. Yeah. Harris. Did you travel together on the golf team and go different places? Fritz. Within reason. The team, it sort of played with San Diego County. It was also just probably no more than a 45-minute drive. But oftentimes, the team traveled together and we would go out to a tournament for the day. Harris. Taking classes together? Fritz. Yeah, we took advanced placement physics together. We had AP chemistry together. We had a number of classes that we studied for together, and I can't remember what other ones, but several classes, and did a lot of things outside of school as well. Harris. What things did you do outside of school? Fritz. Southern California has got a lot of great things for junior golfers. So we played in junior golf during the summer. The summer that second summer I was in California, we began going out to the Desert Junior Golf Association. Had a great tournament. Usually be a 2 or 3 day tournament for all the kids, and nobody else in their right mind wanted to play golf in Palm Springs during the summer because it was 115 or 120 degrees, and we would go out there for tournaments. And Scott and I often went together, and a lot of times, actually, he would drive because, like I say, I was younger, and he had a car before I did, and he had a license before I did. Harris. Did you also have the opportunity to spend time at each other's homes? Fritz. Yes, I stayed over at his family's home many times. And oftentimes, like I said, he was the one with the car and the one who was kind of helping me out and giving me a ride after practice or whatever. So he would have dinner with my family. And I got to know Jackie and Lee Peterson during that time, and he also got to know my parents very well. Harris. Let's talk about that for a second. Your parents, what are your parents' names? Fritz. Connie and Paul Fritz. Harris. And when you say he got to know them, did he develop a relationship with your parents? Fritz. Instantly. Scott was one of the few people that my friends or my parents took to immediately. They are amazing, and they have a lot of really interesting life experiences. And you could sit down and have dinner with them and kind of learn a lot over a 5-minute span. But I think there was a lot of respect for my parents that Scott had, and he recognized that the life experience, that a lot of things that they did and talked about regularly, even now, are the kind of the things that he was interested in. I mean, for instance, both my parents have traveled quite a bit throughout their lives. And they are also both older than most of my peers' parents are. So they've owned their own companies, and they've owned their own businesses, and they have traveled all over the world, and they have got a lot of interesting stories to tell. Kind of consider them to be some of the smartest people I know. Judge. Can we do this by question and answer? Harris. How do they feel about Scott? Fritz. They love Scott. They love Scott very much. Scott oftentimes will go out of his way to do things for them, check in on them. Like I said, he was in school in the middle of Northern California, and I was up away in school as well. And he would oftentimes stop in and check on them. Harris. Would that be when you weren't there? Fritz. I didn't have to be there. I mean, I kind of have an open invitation to his home, which was great. And he obviously My parents made it known to him that he was welcome there anytime, for whatever reason. Harris. Did he develop a friendship with your parents? Fritz. Very much so. Harris. Do you have a little brother? Fritz. Yes, I do. Harris. What's his name? Fritz. Nicholas. Harris. How much younger is he? Fritz. He's 6 years, I believe 6 years my junior. Harris. Did Scott also develop a friendship with Nicholas? Fritz. He did. Scott was he was like a brother to me. Nicholas also, being I think he was in 3rd grade, was kind of the younger brat brother, I guess, of your friend that you don't want to do things with. That wasn't always the case. Scott was always encouraging him to do things with us and to join us, whether it was just going out to do something fun or whatever it was. He was always asking about Nick, always curious about how Nick was doing, always sincerely interested in how he was. Harris. What would you say that you cherish about Scott as a friend? Obviously a close friend. What did you cherish about him as a friend? What did you find to be his traits? Fritz. How many days do we have? I've got a lot of things to talk about that I cherish. Scott's the kind of friend that I would want, if I ever have a child, to have a friend like Scott. He's been the kind of person that's there no matter what. He's been there when you don't even think you need somebody else there. Just truly sincere, truly very, very gracious, and very, very thoughtful. There's a lot of people, I think, that are friends that you kind of know in little bits and pieces of your life. We have known each other for 17 years, and few people have had the impact as a peer in my life other than my parents and a couple of choice, very good friends that Scott has been for me. Harris. When you were at school, I want to make sure I understand this. You can explain it. Uni school has a kind of volunteer program. It's a class that you take. Is that correct? Fritz. Uni is, like I said, it's a diocesan school. They have a lot of sisters and priests who are part of the faculty. And they encourage across the board for everybody to become involved in service work and community work. And there was a couple of different groups, one of which I belong to, with the campus ministry. There were other groups, Students Against Drunk Driving. That was Mothers Against Drunk Driving. There was a service class that was, I think, sponsored by Sister Joan Kiley. Harris. Were these things that you were required to be involved in? Fritz. There are a couple things that if you signed up for them, they were treated like a class where you were expected to do certain things. I know Scott, for instance, was involved in the service class that Sister Kiley was heading up. Harris. When you say Sister Kiley, who is that? Fritz. Sister Joan Kiley was a sister and a teacher at Uni High who, in addition to being a sister, taught various religious classes. Harris. Okay, did she have a relationship with Scott? Fritz. Very much so. I know that he enrolled in her service class. I believe it was his senior year, so that would have been my junior year, and I forget how long the actual class lasted, but it encouraged, and part of the program was to volunteer and work with people at some of the senior centers and retirement homes in the area. Oftentimes went down to the orphanage, or probably more than one, but one orphanage, I'm sure, in Tijuana, Mexico. Being in San Diego, we did a number of volunteer projects in Mexico, and Scott was very involved in that. Harris. When you say he was very involved, obviously you're saying he had a class? Fritz. Yes. Harris. Did he go beyond that class? Fritz. Actually, like I said, he developed quite a relationship with Sister Kylie. And after class was over, I know a number of times that I knew he didn't have the obligations to the class, but I would ask him to do something socially or whatever after school that he had other plans. And it turned out he was actually volunteering to drive other students in the next class that Sister Kylie had going down to Tijuana, strictly on a volunteer basis. He got involved in the beginning and continued doing it throughout the rest of his time at the school. Harris. Would you say he was doing more than the average student? Fritz. Absolutely. Harris. Much more? Fritz. Much more. He was doing a lot of work. I mean, I know that, again, I was doing different things than he was, so it wasn't something he told me about unless I kind of dragged it out of him. That's not something he was doing for any recognition or anything. But service class was one thing. Going to the senior homes and visiting with elderly folks was another thing that I know he did a number of times. And they had another program where they would go and read and spend time with mentally handicapped children. And I don't know how often that was. And I know I don't think it was as often as going to Tijuana to the orphanage, but it was something that he did that I'm aware of. Harris. You are also aware he was involved in the SADD program? Fritz. Yes. As a volunteer for SAD, he was one of the designated drivers. And so if anybody in the school was partying and drinking, they had a number that they should call if they needed a ride home. So he was a volunteer and and I have actually been with him on at least one occasion when he was volunteering and was kind of on call. So that evening, took some people home from parties. Harris. You said a minute ago, in many cases, you would have to drag it out of him. Now, we were talking last night and you told me specifically that it was not phony. In fact, I think you said, I want to make sure I have this accurately. If he were a phony, he would do the minimum and brag about it a lot. This is not the way he did it, unless you heard about it from others and drag it out of him. If you want to hear about the good things he did, he would downplay the positive things and he had done to help other people. Is that an accurate statement? Fritz. Very much so. Harris. How would you find out about these things that he was doing? Fritz. Like I say, we were very close. So we spent a lot of time together. And when they were conspicuous absences of him not being able to, whether it be practice golf or do something fun that I think was probably typical of high school students at the time, I would bug him and find out what he was doing. How come you couldn't make it? Where are you going? What's so important that you can't do this? Then I would find out that he went after school outside of the requirements to join one of the volunteer groups or to work with Sister Kylie as an example. Judge. These been marked? Harris. Yes. Judge. Defendants 9H. Harris. These are 9H-1 through 9H-7. Judge. 1 through 7. Photographs marked as exhibits D9H-1 through 7 for identification. Harris. Show you some photographs there. Just take a look. You talked about the work you did at an orphanage in Tijuana. Did you also at different times go down there as well? Fritz. I did as a volunteer, not with Scott. But if we never crossed paths on the same day, for instance. Harris. Is that the orphanage you're referring to? Fritz. Yes. Harris. That's the one in Tijuana. Show you another picture. Now, is that you? And Scott, we're going to one of the ones you were visiting? Fritz. Yes, it was. Harris. Show you a picture of, I can't get a very good look at it there, but when you're looking at it, is that Scott Peterson there? Fritz. Yeah, that is. That's Scott. Judge. What's the number of that? Harris. D9H4. Judge. Okay. Harris. Again, those pictures are somewhere dark. Again, in Tijuana. Fritz. Yes. That's Sister Kylie in the background. Harris. Sister Kylie is the... Fritz. You can't really see it very well. Top left of the picture in the back. Harris. Right here? Fritz. Yeah. Harris. Was he also encouraging other people to go down and do volunteer work to get involved more than was required? Fritz. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. As an example, just being a fun person to hang out with and a person who was, I think, a good role model. After the class was over to volunteer and take people down. I think he had a Jeep Wrangler at the time. And it was always kind of fun to go, down there with him because it was always a fun experience. He made it not only the journey, but the reason for the trip was always made a little extra. And so people who wouldn't otherwise be encouraged to do something like that oftentimes would be encouraged by Scott. Harris. Is that kind of a common theme you see throughout Scott's life, that he always liked to do extra things? Fritz. Absolutely. Without question. Harris. We'll get a little more to that later, but I just want to ask you one other question about the volunteer work. I mean, you were on the golf team. Scott was a pretty good golfer, wasn't he? Fritz. Yes. Harris. And at one point, he was captain of the golf team, right? Fritz. That's correct. Harris. I think it's safe to say that he had at least enough talent to play golf in college and possibly go on with a career. Is that a fair statement? Fritz. Yeah, I think a lot of us wanted to at least think about being able to pursue golf as a career. Harris. Did you see that as he got more involved in the volunteer work that it actually came at the expense of his golf game? Fritz. He was, like I say, he was very busy with the various activities. Then it was open times after school. And after school is the only time you have to practice. So there was no doubt that the other fun activities he would be involved in after school or practicing for your various teams, including golf, you couldn't do both. So it was clear to me that there was certainly sacrifice. It was because he was doing something else that he loved doing. Probably a good sacrifice. Harris. If you would, I want to show you 3 more pictures. You recognize those pictures? Fritz. Yes, I do. Harris. What is that? Fritz. That's Scott and I. I'm wearing a red bow tie. Harris. Do you remember where that was taken? Fritz. I don't recall. Judge. What's the number of that? Harris. His high school graduation. Were you an usher? Fritz. Oh, that's right. That's right. Explains the bow tie. Harris. That's also at the graduation? Fritz. Yes, it was. Harris. And that as well? Fritz. Yes. Harris. You talked about the fact that you had Scott often visited your home and you often visited his. So you had the opportunity to meet Jackie and Lee. Is that correct? Fritz. Yeah, I did. Harris. And have you also continued a friendship with them? Fritz. Yes. Harris. Over the years? Fritz. Yeah. Harris. Continue to talk to them even through this trial? Fritz. Yes. Harris. What was your impression of Scott's home life when you saw him interact with his parents? Fritz. He was certainly very mature, and I think given more responsibility than most people our age. His parents, if they were away, they never saw any problem with him being home without them. They were always encouraging of having me certainly over to their home, and like I said before, it's kind of an open invitation. So just kind of having an open door policy for me as a friend was certainly very comforting and nice to have. Harris. Did you see him interact with his father? Fritz. Yeah, I actually probably saw more interaction with Jackie just because, like I said, in high school, Lee was probably more of the time at work during the day when I'd be over at the house or what have you. Yeah, he was actually demonstrated a kind of a neat respect for his dad. Harris. Neat. Fritz. He calls him Chief. Is one interesting note. Harris. You say you saw him interact with Jackie there. What was their relationship like from what you observed? Fritz. I think like a lot of high school kids, there was definitely the, very interested. If I'm very interested in having my own independence as a student or as a teenager, so she was always there for him, but always allowing him to have his own independence as well. So it's kind of a nice combination. But more importantly was the fact that she completely trusted him, would not hesitate to, I guess, let him have privilege to go places or do things and invite me along or what have you. That was probably more than, so I think most of my peers had. It was just kind of a friendship in addition to parent-child relationship. Harris. You mentioned the maturity, trustworthiness, that this also something that your parents had in Scott. As far as your relationship with him, Fritz. In terms of maturity? Harris. In terms of trustworthiness they put in Scott. Fritz. Yeah, like I mentioned before, we'd go out and play in the desert junior golf tournaments, which were about 2 hours away out in the desert area. And generally, they would go with me, like a 2 or 3 day tournament. The only person I was ever allowed to go with without supervision, I guess, would be Scott. If Scott was driving, it was fine. Harris. Why was that? Fritz. Like I said before, they kind of had an instant respect for each other. I think they understood that he was very conscientious and very caring. And the way that he treated me when I was new, through the time that we've been friends all these years, has always been that of somebody who's respected them and very much been very sincere. So I think that was reciprocated with maybe additional responsibility, if you will, in taking care of me, if you will, kind of like an older brother. Harris. When you talked to me, you said you described Scott's generosity as endless. What did you mean by that? Fritz. It is. There wasn't a time that he wasn't on his way over to get together or a party or anything like that he wasn't calling 10 minutes before he got there to find out if he could pick up ice or pick up something, or if there was anything you forgot, He was always there early to help out. He was always there late to help clean up. And like I said, in the same way that his parents have extended kind of the open invitation to their home, he and Lacey did the same anything in their home. And being an hour and a half, 2 hours away, living there in Northern California, it was always great coming back. Modesto was kind of a midway point for coming back and forth to Lake Tahoe. And so it was oftentimes the case where we would be going through Modesto area and stop by and visit or be invited to stay overnight if it was too late or whatever. Harris. Okay. As far as when you were in high school, would he often volunteer to take you home? Those kind of things? Give you rides when he didn't have to? Fritz. We both lived in North County in San Diego. Even though it wasn't necessarily on the way, he oftentimes volunteered to take me home after practice, which obviously went usually until dark after school. My parents were starting a new business, and they were pretty busy. And my mom, when she wasn't working with my dad, was oftentimes taking care of my little brother, who was at school closer to home. So recognizing that it was inconvenient for them to have to pick me up at school that was 30 minutes away from our house, he very regularly took me home and offered to do so without that. He would kind of offer those things up before they even became an issue. Harris. We have talked a lot of your sort of interaction within the high school. Let me move on. As the two of you get older, you mentioned you went to separate colleges, but you stayed in contact. Is that right? Fritz. Yes. Harris. Would you go see him in St. Louis, or would he come to Santa Clara and see you? Fritz. Yes. Harris. Were you aware of his financial situation when he was in college and his job situation? Fritz. He was a hard worker, and that was something I really respected about Scott. I think, coming from a privileged background, I think a lot of people can kind of rest on their laurels and just sit and see the comfort and enjoy that and let it be. But I would go down to visit Scott at St. Louis, and he was working 3 jobs. I know for much of the times he was there. He worked at the golf course, which was good because we were able to get out on the golf course, and he worked at the restaurant, at least one at a time. And he was also working as, I think, part owner of a business with his family in the St. Louis area, all of which I'd seen him at different things simultaneously, different jobs.
This episode is sponsored by MIDI Health.
MIDI Health is here to change the way women experience menopause care. As a husband, I've seen my wife Cindy navigate the challenges of menopause, and it hasn't been easy. Keeping up with her symptoms while feeling dismissed by traditional healthcare providers was tough for her. It was disheartening to hear the doctors say it was all in her head, or to just focus on diet and exercise. I learned that many healthcare providers lack training in menopause, which is shocking. 80% of OBGYNs report they are untrained in this critical area, and 75% feel uncomfortable discussing it with their patients. Thank goodness Cindy found MIDI. MIDI is a virtual care clinic dedicated to truly seeing, hearing, and understanding women's experiences. It was created by women for women, and they accept insurance in all 50 states. Getting started is simple. She visited www.trymidi.com/real, set up her account, and entered her insurance information and shared her symptoms. She was able to choose a convenient time to meet her clinician. During the virtual visit, she discussed her symptoms and health history in detail with a nurse practitioner trained in perimenopause, menopause, and weight management. If she needs any tests like blood work or imaging, they help coordinate it with a local facility that accepts her insurance. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Now she can follow her treatment plan and schedule follow-up visits. MIDI even collaborates with her other doctors for in-person treatment if necessary. Best of all, there are no hidden costs, no membership fees, and MIDI bills your insurance directly. MIDI also offers fantastic products, including compound semaglutide and estriol face cream, which Cindy loves. This prescription skincare product is designed to improve skin elasticity, hydration, and texture, addressing those frustrating changes related to estrogen decline. So if you're ready to take charge of your midlife health, go to www.trymidi.com trymidi.com/real. That's www.trymidi.com/real to schedule a virtual visit. Join more than 200,000 women who love and trust MIDI for their midlife care. Y'all use my code SAFE15 to get $15 off your first RX product when you book your visit. Genetics can be beautiful. Maybe you got your mom's eyes or her great skin, but genetics can also be a nightmare. I hear friends say, I got my mom's belly and love handles. Don't let genetics be the thing that holds you back from getting the body you deserve. Check out the Permanent Solutions by Sono Bello. Our friends at Sono Bello are offering you their best deal. You're now included in their winter savings event, but appointments are limited, so please make your appointment today. Sono Bello doctors are masters in micro laser fat removal. What is micro fat laser removal? Micro laser fat removal is a brilliant technique that removes stubborn fat permanently. Tummy, love handles, thighs, arms, wherever your problem areas are, the fat is gone in one comfortable visit. Eating healthy and workouts are great. Keep doing that. But if you want to lose that stubborn fat in one visit, check out Sono Bello. Save big during their winter savings event. Schedule your free consultation now at sonobello.com/RLRC. That's SONOBELLO.com/RLRC. Harris, you mentioned he came from a fortunate background. By the time he had grown to be a teenager, his parents had done well in their business. Did he ever exude an arrogance? Was he ever arrogant to other people? Rude? Fritz, no, he was the opposite. I guess if you were from a background like that, it might be expected you could easily be arrogant, but he wasn't. And very much the opposite is. I mean, he was always very caring and very conscientious, was very contagious. Harris, as he later in life, as you moved on, you became aware he went to work for a company called Trade Corp. Is that right? Fritz, yes. Fritz, yes. Harris, that was a European company? Fritz, European company, I think they were based in Spain or Portugal. Harris, were you aware what his jobs entailed, what he was doing on a regular basis? Fritz, it was interesting because I understood the job allowed him to live within reason, pretty much anywhere in California. And he told me that they wanted a representative in California that could travel and essentially service the various agriculture communities within the state. And being aware from both Lacey's family and Scott's family, Modesto was an opportunity for them to move and work for the company without and be central. Harris, are you aware of the part of his job entailed going around different fertilizer companies, talking to them about new products, that kind of thing? Fritz, I think it was going out to a lot of the farms as a representative for the fertilizer companies. That was part of it. So a lot of times I would call him because we were both on the road different times. We would call and just check in on each other on our cell phones. So it wasn't uncommon for him just to give me a call in the middle of the day and ask how things were going, what I was up to, and vice versa, me calling him. I would catch him out in the middle of the field having lunch with workers on the farm, just kind of having a break on the tailgate of the pickup truck. And other times I would catch him, he would be making a presentation to a group in San Francisco. Harris, did he seem comfortable in both of those? Fritz, very much so. Harris, situations? Fritz, very much so. Kind of like a Renaissance kid standing in front of you. He worked well with people of all statures. He was comfortable. And whether it was the Four Seasons, and whether it was out in the fields and the farm, and he was just a very sincere person with whoever he was dealing with. Harris. You mentioned to me he would very gladly do anything, no matter how menial. What did you mean by that? Fritz. Given the spectrum of what that job encompassed, it was everything from visiting with people and understanding what their problems were on the job site, on the farm, to traveling back to Europe and doing training or presentation to different parts of the world. It was not on a personal level. It wasn't difficult for him to drop whatever he was doing and help you out, fix your car, or help you. No matter how busy he was, he always made time to give you a hand, and he did that regularly for me. Harris. Was he in your wedding? Fritz. Yeah, he was. He was a groomsman in my wedding. And that was kind of interesting because he was actually in Europe on business and came back early. It was kind of a tough trip. I know because he left early and I think he had to fly back to California for flying to the Northeast where our wedding was. And somewhere, he came back from Europe, met up with Lacey, and then they both came to New Hampshire for our wedding. Harris. Did you have a chance to see him on numerous locations after he was married? Is that right? Fritz. Yes, very much so. Harris. Did you at one point take a trip to Hawaii with Scott and Lacey? Fritz. Yeah, my wife and I had use of a condo in Maui for a week, and we invited Scott and Lacey to join us for that trip. And that was one big trip that we oftentimes spent time at their home and vice versa. Harris. Did you ever see him lose his temper with Lacey? Fritz. No, never. Harris. Did you ever see Scott Peterson lose his temper pretty much over anything? Fritz. No. He was always very even-keeled. That was one of the things I respected. Something that you definitely take to the golf course with you as a true attribute. It's something that is something picked up from his family. I think there's a lot to be said for the strength and the ability to kind of keep calm during times when you're competing in tournaments and things like that. A lot of people would throw clubs and get all angry and obviously lose their composure. That wasn't something he did. He is very good, very composed, very professional almost. Harris. You mentioned the word inner strength. He had very much an inner strength. What did you mean by that? Fritz. I think anybody who knows Scott closely as I do realizes that he has a sense of faith and a sense of strength that kind of permeates who he is. It's the type of thing that most people don't get to know unless, somebody very closely. But the way he interacts with people, the way he takes genuine interest in people, the way he treats my parents, the way he has treated my little brother, not just courteous, but generous and compassionate, certainly beyond his years. There's a lot of wonderful experiences that I have. And he's always been very strong, very stable person. And I've always looked to as a role model. Harris. You actually told me last night in times, your own times, you were questioning how you should act. What would you do? Fritz. I would think about what Scott would do in a certain situation. Like I say, that's kind of from the day I met him to throughout our friendship. The Scott Peterson that I know is the kind of person that you respect and admire. And if I find myself in a situation wondering, gosh, what to do? He was the kind of person that I would try to emulate. Harris. We talked a little bit about the possibility of him being executed. what would that mean to you? Fritz, it would be a horrendous tragedy. It would be a terrible loss of a friend, of a brother figure in my life, of a person who I think has brought a little bit of who I am. You truly believe is the product of my wonderful parents, my surroundings, my environment, and your peers, my peers. And he is certainly one that has contributed to it, that is. And I'm very proud of that and certain that he had the impact on many others, not just myself, because that's the kind of person he is. Harris, you have seen him have a positive impact on other people. Fritz, absolutely. He had a positive impact on everybody he meets. Harris, do you believe these? I mean, if he stays alive, even in prison, he continues to have a positive influence? Fritz, absolutely. I think there is lots of people in this world with a lot of restrictions or a lot of handicaps or limitations that have done amazing things with their lives and have done amazing things, not just for themselves, but for a lot of other people. And I think that Scott's continuing to be with us would have an impact on, possibly a very positive impact on a lot of people. And I think you can do that from behind bars if need be. You would eradicate the possibility of that ever being available for the rest of the world to witness if he wasn't here. Harris, thank you. That is all I have. Y'all, we conclude this episode of The State versus Scott Peterson, Scorched. And now, come on, man, get the fuck out of here. I mean, I understand they're throwing anything against the wall trying to catch one bleeding heart motherfucker on the jury that's going to say, well, look, we can't put Scott to death. He used to give this dude rides home from school so his mama wouldn't have to get out with a youngster. Or they went to an orphanage in Tijuana and it took away from his golf game. Or get the fuck out of here. Again, I mean, I get lost into it because I'm reading it. I'm doing accents and all that stuff, but they just sat through months-long trial. They found him fucking guilty of murdering his pregnant wife. She couldn't be any more pregnant, and killing their unborn son. What the fuck does any of this have to do with that? Nothing. Scorched. Again, if I was on the jury, I would be so fucking disgusted that you're putting up motherfuckers up there talking about Sister Kylie. Who gives a fuck? What about Connor? What about Lacey? This cat mentions Lacey like 3 times in an hour worth of interrogation. And in the very end, oh no, I think if you kill Scott, he's going to miss out on the chance of helping somebody else. Well, fucking baby Connor never even got a chance to breathe because of his daddy. And Lacey murdered, prime of her life, because of the person she trusted most in the world. And I'm concluding this episode, Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, Scorched. Y'all real quick, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Cindy and I show True Crime Time 4. Wow. We mixed it up a lot. It's not like the old Daily Show used to be. Thank y'all for loving it and liking and commenting and sharing. It's awesome to watch it grow. And hashtag Justice for Haley. Very, very important. I'm recording this 2 days before, but just yesterday they had a hearing on whether or not they're going to release Brooks Cleary from jail. So I know of this, and Miss Barbara's getting to watch it from Zoom, the hearing, and holy shit, if he gets out or gets a new trial, I imagine that's going to blow up and go national before we get the chance to finish it. But y'all, that's on Fridays, hashtag Justice for Haley. Please listen to it. Patreon convicts, go in and look at all the stuff, all the murder scene evidence, all the different photographs and the videos and everything we have put up for you. Even the cops and the DA say, hey, it was murder. Guess what? He's not in prison for murder. So we're going to need y'all's help. I want to thank all all our sponsors. I know it's a lot of commercials, y'all, but it is a business, how we pay our bills. And you don't have to, if you're a patron of Convict, you subscribe, you get commercial-free early releases on everything, every day, 6 days a week anyway. And thanks to Leah Marie, investigative producer for the True Crime Time 4. Thank you, Chase Taliban, for, I should say it on every show, for the awesome opening music. I love and appreciate y'all. And y'all, if you get a chance to go see them, they'll be playing everywhere. Sometimes this dude plays like 3 shows in a day in different parts of Louisiana. But it's festival season. It's starting to rain. I'm sure y'all can probably hear that. It's festival season now. It's starting in Louisiana. And so they'll be rocking it. LOPA, Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency. It's my jam, nonprofit. Sign up to be an organ donor. You don't have to be a lifer from Louisiana. You can be a lifer from Nome, Alaska. Go to lopa.org, take 2 minutes, fill out the questionnaire, become an organ donor, be a hero, give the gift of life and sight and all that other great stuff they do. And I'm Woody Overton, your host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. And until next time or ever, don't let me catch you down on Murder Bayou. Peace.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to and during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your door, you running's over, that's for sure. He already knows all about you. Cut you down on Murder Bayou. Now you better walk the line. Real life, real
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to paint their door a vibrant shade of blue. Others have the need to decorate their bathroom with fish, anchors, and other nautical items. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.